This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Fremen? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friends, Jake and Josh, here with me, and kind of a special recording today. They are together recording from in an opposite environment of the movie that we're going to talk about. We're talking about Dune Part 2, and you guys are not, well, I guess you are like in a desert, kind of, right?
We're more in the Shattered Plains than the Shattered Breast Canyon. We're close to it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Shattered Plains.
No sand, no sand dudes, no worms
No
out
sand.
there in the forest.
We've traded sand for snow currently. Yeah.
Well, cool. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out that setting. But yeah, let's talk about the movie. So we saw Dune last weekend. Part two. Yes, part two. Jake and I saw it in the IMAX. I don't know. Did you see
I saw
IMAX,
IMAX.
Josh? Or?
Yeah, I saw
Okay.
IMAX.
All right. So this is a highbrow IMAX discussion. True fans, obviously. And I mean, I think like we all liked it, right? Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
really like the movie. I feel like that's kind of like a given at this point, but let's maybe like break down a little bit more our opinions.
First of all, I didn't like it. I loved it, Steven.
Okay,
It was
sure.
great. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
great.
No, I loved it. I gave it a 9 out of 10 right
I think I would.
afterwards. And I think, yeah, probably about
Yeah.
sticking there.
Yeah. I'm sticking there. Yeah.
I'm sick. Dude, all nines, 9
All
out of 10.
nines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unheard of. Unprecedented.
We saw Steve and I saw it with our friend Thomas, who did not give it a 9. He gave it an 8. And
We had to talk him up to an 8 too. He was starting at 7 and we were like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. Like, really?
his reasoning was it was all about expectations, and he heard it was as good as Lord of the Rings. And in his mind, Lord of the Rings is a 10. This was clearly not a 10, so the max we could get him up to is an 8. But we can dive more into that discussion later.
Yeah. I think it was an easy 9 for me. I think that there are some things that do prevent it from being like a perfect 10. Some changes to the books, some being just a little bit like the pacing was really, really good, but there were some like places that sped up a little bit faster than I don't know, like it was a little bit choppy in some places, I thought.
I think like we'll get into like more differences, I think, as we continue the episode. But like a big difference is there's no time jump between part 1 and part 2. We're in the book in a similar timeline. There's like a 2 or 3 year gap. And in this, like the time frame is less than 9 months for sure. Because Aaliyah isn't born. And she was pregnant at the beginning of like before the end of part 1.
Mhm.
So I do think thinking about all of this happening in 9 months, if you think about it a little bit, to me it does seem a little fast, like a little too compressed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Stephen?
I didn't. So first of all, as far as differences to the book, like I don't love the book. You can check out our review of the book, which was like a long time ago now. But I mean, I still remember from my experience reading the book, I thought it was great for the 60s, was it? And obviously a
Yeah.
big influence on things, but like I didn't really think it stood up super well. And so any changes they made to the book, I was totally fine with. I mean, as long as it's still made for a good movie. And I thought the decisions they made were just fine. Like the time jump in the book seemed a little awkward. I'm glad they got rid of that. I liked the expansion that they made to Chaney's character. And I think the only thing that maybe like they could have done differently was, the ending with the kind of the ambiguity of where Paul was headed. And it's not really too ambiguous by the time the movie's over. But from the book, I don't remember finishing the book and thinking that Paul was evil. I kind of thought that he was the hero and had
Yeah.
won.
Yeah. No, you covered a lot just there.
Yeah.
In terms of like the big difference, I think people are going to be talking about is the tone, how like Dune Part 2 is like the movie clearly ends more like a tragedy where
Yeah.
you have Shawnee's POV throughout, which I think is done super well. And like you clearly see like the choices he has made, whether he has made them for good or for bad, and it seems like he's made them for bad, they're going to have bad consequences regardless. Whereas the book, you are like you get the hints along the way that like if he does this, there's a good chance that like billions of people are going to die. But the book ends in a triumphant tone, and you don't really get to see the huge negative fallout uh until later as things progress, like in further books along. And yeah, so I don't know. I do think I don't know, you miss out on some of that like the shoe dropping moment in the story by not having it in so triumphant and being so clearly like this is a negative thing. But I do like in terms of a movie and like if they can't do a part three, especially like this is a really good way to end it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it is interesting because usually I feel like movie adaptations or TV show adaptations take away some of the greatness of characters and either make them like either way worse or just way better. Um, and whereas this one, I feel like they made him much more of like an anti-hero than a hero that was like the more of like a tragic like Shakespearean hero. I feel like which is what he's presented as in the book.
I think he's an anti-hero in the book as well.
Maybe I just my reading was he was a hero who was being forced to make decisions that he knew were going to be bad, but
Yeah,
but he was trying his hardest to not have those bad things happen.
he was trying his hardest, but I've only read the first book,
Yeah, same.
and I really like Dune as a book. My understanding, like, it was more a sense of like naivete and lack of better judgment as to why he went down that path. And like he, I feel like in the book it was clear that he's using the Fremen from the get go. Basically, like yeah, like their interests align to a degree, and like they have that in common. But he is very much like using them for his revenge, whereas in the book he's not. So I think the opposite. I think the movie he is less gray of a character and is more clear cut.
Clear cut bad though.
He clearly goes from good to okay, now he's bad.
Yeah. Okay. I that's what I'm meaning. I think that he was presented as much more gray in the book. Well, like a good person doing kind of bad things, whereas in this one, he's like not really even trying to be that good of a person.
I mean
in the movie.
In the movie, I think he is up until he isn't.
Yeah. Up until he goes south, pretty much.
And we should let's continue talking about differences, but I think that'd be something interesting to talk about is like why did that change happen? Like I know when we stepped out of the theater, people we saw the movie with were kind of confused as to why he made such a drastic change. But yeah,
in the movie, I think it's presented as he drank the potion or the worm piss as they call it, and
the water of life. So you think the water of life changed him?
Well, I think that he went in knowing, like, there's a line that he said to Chani. He said, and then I'll do what must be done. And I took it as maybe him thinking that he would like kill himself or something if he like in order to prevent the jihad from happening. Right. Like I that was what I took it as when he said that in the like kind of in the beginning of the movie or in the first half of the movie. But then I think looking back on it, he was referring to he knew that he was going to need to drink it to know what would need to be done. And like that's when he saw like the narrow way or whatever that and he knew he was going to do it.
Knew he was going to go down the path of jihad.
Yeah.
Or crusade, as I think they say crusade in the movie.
Is it just jihad
in the book is
that's right.
But I guess we'll get into that now. For me, I think the turning point was him being the movie Paul not being able to foresee the attack on the siege. And like because he says something like I didn't see this like happening, and then that triggered
that's like the main base.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
the
remember
siege
that.
where Stilgar and Chani are from. That's when
Right.
Fade
Okay.
Rotha gets in control and just starts basically carpet bombing everything. Um, but at that point, he tries to get like more clarity as to what to do next, and he has that like vision with Jamis saying like, "You need to stand at the tallest place you can so you can see further." And to me, that was the turning point where at the beginning where of that change of who he is, because he got to the point where he's like, I'm willing to go south now because going south guarantees me being able to see further, and that is more important than anything else. And then I think drinking the water of life furthered that development by helping him realize more about himself and that narrow path forward. And I think what the movie is trying to say is him realizing his parentage and how he is also a Harkonnen and having all of this like knowledge. Um, I don't know. I think you could say he realized the only way to survive is to go down this narrow path, and so it's worth it. And then also,
Mm.
like reassessing who he is and what he is capable of, because he is a descendant of a Harkonnen, so he's fine with being more brutal in
Yeah,
that way.
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't really make the. I mean, I made the Harkonnen connection, but not
Yeah,
in that way of. I mean, he said it in the line, and he said kind of something similar to that in the movie, right? Where he
yeah,
said, "I was able to do this because of I was a Harkonnen or something."
yeah. He's
Yeah,
like, we'll like play as Harkonnens or fight as Harkonnens or
yeah,
something.
yeah, that's interesting.
So it sounds like, but your conclusion, Jake, is that up until the point, like before he drank the water of life, he was basically just like making the next logical step in order to,
Yeah, I think
you
he
know,
was sh
best. Yeah, he was almost kind of like forced along, not necessarily like forced, but it was always like the next thing that made sense. And but then once he took the water of life, then his vision was expanded, and he's like, okay, actually, now I understand all this stuff, so I'm gonna kind of change my whole outlook, and therefore,
yeah,
yeah.
it's like his whole like foundation of morality shifted then, it seems like. And it
Mm.
was triggered because he was shaken by not being able to protect the ones he loved, which made him kind of like an Anakin Skywalker, Revenge of the Sith, like out of desire to protect those he loves, he needs, is it possible to gain this power? But in his mind, or in his situation,
Mm.
it's more knowledge. And that's what the water of life
So
provides.
when Fade Rautha killed all the women and the children, he, I guess, I mean, and Anakin did that in his plot line, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that's the biggest, like that's the biggest difference people talk about. I think
Yeah,
another there are two other bigger differences, or three other actually. We kind of touched on it. Chani, I don't, if you guys want to talk more about like the expansion of her plot line, I thought
yeah,
it was done so well. Zendaya killed it. And although it is only possible because of the changes they made, that I think there's reason to like or dislike the change with um, Paul clearly turning anti-hero or villain. Like it allowed for Chani to be such an amazing character. And
yeah.
I thought that was done so well.
I think that the my only dislike with the Chinese change, and I might be misremembering this from the book, but I feel like he relied on more like his mom and the thought of his sister to be like a moral compass in the book, whereas they weren't in the movie. They were almost like pulling him further like down like a villainous path, you know?
Well, yeah, and again, that's because they I feel like that is because they changed him from
Yeah,
understanding like the fallout and resisting it more in this, and so he needed that oppositional force to still be driving him. But yeah, definitely changed.
but I feel like it made me like Lady Jessica less in the movie than I did in the
Mm.
book. Even, but it made me like Johnny a lot more. So I feel like it just gave me like some of Lady Jessica's arc to Johnny, which I'm sure book fans like are probably won't. I don't know if that makes complete sense, but with how my memory is going for
Yeah,
the book, like
Mm.
that's how I see it.
I haven't read the book in a long time. I really need to reread
The
it.
the other real quick, the other thing that was interesting to me was I feel like in the book he was a lot more driven by love for his mom and
his sister Aaliyah.
Whereas this one, he didn't really. He seemed to just be driven by revenge. For what happened to his family.
It's like
Well,
revenge and almost like self-preservation.
yeah,
But he could have just lain low in the with the Fremen and been fine.
yeah, and again, that's why I think that moment of seeing them be destroyed.
But they're only destroyed because he was taking control of their armies, trying to like.
Yeah, I guess yeah, I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think self-preservation was a big part, and I think to counterpoint kind of what you're saying, I think Lady Jessica was humanized a lot more in the movie than she was in the book, and that everything she is doing is also to protect those she loves, like Paul and then Aaliyah. I think something that we haven't taken into account is another huge change from the book is first of all, Aaliyah is born in that year's gap. And Paul has children with Chani, and the Harkonnens, like instead of just the seats being destroyed like that,
I think
Aaliyah
just
is
one.
kidnapped.
They have a son.
Yes, they have son
Yeah.
Leto. Yeah. Aaliyah is kidnapped by Baron Harkonnen, and then Leto is killed during that raid. So that I can't remember exactly if those were the only motivations, but I feel like those were more of his motivations in the book to like become more offensive with everything. At least like that's why things ramped up towards the end.
Mm.
And you don't have any of that really. Like as much as it's interesting, as much as his relationship with Chani is much more fleshed out in the movie, it has less of a emotional tie there with his child being killed, which I feel like I'm okay with because it does kind of seem I don't think the book focuses enough on like how heavy of a loss that would have been, It's like it felt like a fridging moment, like in terms of like this, like his son existed just to be killed for the plot to progress, and but
To make
but
his
yeah,
motivation stronger and seem like more of a personal connection. Because yeah, there's definitely like his relationship with the Fremen and everything is strong. And after that attack happens, it's pretty clear that that changes him, but it doesn't have that same personal connection of his
yeah,
son being killed and sister being kidnapped. And yeah.
it's in the movie, it's just his father, and then I think he's kind of like falling on his sword in the movie. Like I'm okay to be the villain because it'll protect those I love. Like that scene with Chani when he says he'll take Irulan's hand in marriage, and he like looks at Chani and she's like so heartbroken over it. First of all, the acting there, everyone involved, amazing. Zendaya especially,
Yeah.
like no words were expressed, but just like the look of like hurt and then
Betrayal.
like betrayal and then just like anger, like okay, I'm out, like
Yeah.
so
And the cold reluctance on Paul's part.
yeah, like he kind of like hesitates but then does it.
Yeah.
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 Which was
And
different than
even
the book
almost
too, because in the book, Cheney is just like fine being the
Yeah,
concubine, right?
and like in the book, Paul is like, will like he like assures Shawnee, this is just a political marriage. I'm never sleeping with her. Like this is just like, and then yeah, I mean, I want to get into spoilers of Dune Messiah, but yeah, like there's like he is in no way. It was no way felt like a betrayal in the book, which I think the change in the movie is better drama, and I think it's more realistic and has less like sexist um messaging with it, which not that like all stories should be changed just because of that, because like that is an aspect of it.
I think it's easy for us to go easy on that decision because none of us have you read Dune Messiah?
No, I've like Steve and I talked about this, like we've Wikipedia'd some stuff like years ago, but
Yeah. So I think that's I think that would be hard to swallow, like a hard pill to swallow if you're a big like Dune fan.
and it does, with again without getting spoilers, Dune Messiah, it does seemingly put book or movie part 3 in a difficult position for a major conflicts.
Gotcha.
In the next one, or like difficult position that they'd have to like rework a lot.
Yeah.
As we were talking about Paul, one other thing, it seemed like when Gurney came back, that also
yeah,
brought back, his motivation to avenge his father and the Atreides, right? Like,
Like it brought out the Atreides side in him more.
yeah, that character reemerging, which was kind of sudden out of nowhere, like all of a sudden he's back, but it was
Yeah.
effective in kind of shifting Paul's tone a bit as well.
So it was interesting. I went to see Tenet in IMAX. They re-released it for like a week.
Yeah.
So I went with my buddy to go see it. And one of the previews was that whole scene where he met Gurney
Oh, cool.
in IMAX on 70 millimeter. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
So that was pretty neat. So I kind of had seen that scene. I assumed it was going to be more towards the beginning of the movie but no, it was like, a good chunk of the way through.
From what I remember, it's pretty faithful to the book in terms of like how he comes across him and like.
But if you had never read the book, I feel like that would be kind of a big spoiler. I'd be kind of upset if I don't know.
And again, in the movie, he serves as like Gurney Halleck in the movie is like clearly overly motivated by revenge and is not thinking clearly. Like all he wants is revenge.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie or in the book, I think it was much more like, oh, we found this guy. This is great, and like we'll fight together to like achieve our hero's journey. But something else that I think I didn't remember, but as I was reviewing differences for this episode, I think was handled better in the book is so at the end when the other lands route high houses are like surrounding and threatening to attack, and Paul in the movie says he'll bomb the spice fields if they don't back off. The movie doesn't like really. I feel like the movie wasn't super clear, and I could be wrong. First of all, with did they believe he'd actually do it? It seemed like they didn't believe it, and that's what led to like jihad. And like the movie ends with them going into like, okay, we're gonna go on this like galactic war path. Whereas in the book, instead of nuking it, which I saw some criticism saying like you could bomb the spice fields, but like they'd come back. But what Paul was threatening to do in the book is pour water over it, and water destroys spice, and it also messes with the sandworm's like life cycle. So it would be like permanently destroying spice, like for like removing spice from being produced in Arrakis at all.
Well, doesn't he tell Stilgar that he wants to like give the Fremen this paradise to live
the paradise,
on?
yeah, and that's like those go hand in hand. But so he makes that threat to the lands or the high houses. So the threat is larger in that it is like more permanent. And then they have a truth sayer. I don't know if I think it's a Bene Gesserit. Basically, they confirm that he's not bluffing. And so then the houses retreat, like they all go back to their own planets, and Paul is declared emperor. And then I don't think it's till the next book where he's not going through fighting to become emperor, but instead he's fighting to control the empire that he has secured. So, which makes it even, I don't know, I feel like that adds a lot more nuance to it and makes it even less okay, like what the
was there
crusade
anything
is
more?
about.
Was there anything more to the motivation at the end of the movie, or was it really just Paul wants to be emperor? These houses are opposing it, therefore we're going to get on our ships and go off and fight them.
Well, he couldn't have gotten the revenge he wanted against the emperor and the Harkonnens without the houses retaliating in the movie, and so it need like those. His only chance of doing that without them retaliating is if they would have backed down.
Like there is no way he could have just not declare himself emperor after doing that to the emperor, after overthrowing his authority. And so he needed to do that. They weren't just going to let him go back into like live as a Fremen and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which is interesting because like part of the whole setup of the book is that the Atreides house is his father is getting too popular with the Landsrat, which maybe less so with the high houses, but it feels like there's room for a story arc where instead of like usurping and becoming emperor, he could have rallied the houses behind him and used that support to then not have to threaten them with the destruction of spice.
Maybe a little nobler route there.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think those were the biggest differences from the book. I think the Chani one and how that affects like the sequels we'll have to see how that plays out. But overall, I'm satisfied with pretty much all the changes. I do think there's some more nuance in the book the series itself that is a little lost out here, but I think it's still a really good story, really good movie, super well made, well acted, and it still has the same like spirit of what the book was trying to portray.
I'm still not
Convey.
sure if Timothy Chalamet is a good actor or not.
Dude, I think he killed
100%
it.
disagree.
I think he killed it.
Someone needs
spoiled
to
the
explain to
second-
me if he's a good
Jake-
actor or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is.
100% disagree.
Yeah.
It's easy. Did you see? I for 1 minute would not have like. First of all, I haven't seen Timothy Chalamet in too many other things,
Me neither.
but I mean, I think I watch Little Women.
Little
right?
Women,
He's in-
he does a really good job in Little Women.
okay, but I did not see Timothy Chalamet in that role. I saw Paul like
Yeah,
the entire time,
yeah,
and he was commanding. He went from being like beaten down to like I could totally see him commanding a million troops. Like he had Riz.
yeah. And
I don't know. I think
He
I
had
think he did a
Riz.
great job.
did you guys see Don't Look Up?
Yeah.
Did you see that, Steven?
Was he in that?
No.
Yeah, he's Jennifer Lawrence's like
Oh,
kind
like
of
his like
douchebaggy,
douchebag
broy boyfriend.
Oh, like
Yeah.
the one that
Yeah, and like he plays
Oh,
that amazingly.
I did see
Yeah.
that movie. Yeah.
And I think the moments that made me why like the reasons why I say he killed it in this is he does a really good job, especially in part one, of like portraying this like innocence and like he's a child, you know what I mean, with a lot of power and like knowledge, but he doesn't know how to handle it. Like that scene when he's having the vision in the tent with his mom in part one, and he's like crying and he's like yelling, like, get away from me, like you did this to me, like that is amazing. And then in part two, he has like this whole like he goes from still being that child to growing up, but you still see him being that awkward like kid, you know what I mean? To then switching from that to times of like totally commanding the room and like just amazing, like the differences there, and they're and like in his character, instead of it being like this gradual growth into it, they're so sharp and sudden that I think that like makes his acting skills stand out even further because you get that like sharp contrast. But
Steven's
All right.
trying not to.
Timothy
he's not buying
Chalamet
it.
for,
He's not
for
buying
best actor.
he's not buying it at all.
What
We'll see the
Not
Oscars
best
next year, I
actor,
guess.
what more? No, but what more did you need from that performance?
I
I
just
mean,
I don't know,
I
man.
think-
There's some actors and actresses that I just like I
Is he just too
struggle
good
with.
looking?
Yeah, he's too good looking.
He's just too hot. You can't see past.
Steven
Maybe
questions
the
his-
problem is
or sexual orientation watching.
I watch a lot of sports, so I see a lot of commercials. Yeah, I know nowadays people don't really see commercials unless they actually watch TV. And he's in this fragrance commercial that is like always on, and I just like can't take it seriously because he's not yes,
That-
he's a good
that
looking guy,
story
but
kills
he's
me.
not like he's not like your classical like
He's a
Greek
good dude.
god of a person like you would
I hope
expect
you're
to see
not
on
saying
a anyway. So I just like I struggle to take him seriously.
That story reminds me.
Maybe
I have
because
a
of the
friend-
commercial.
I have a friend who's from Milwaukee area, and he was so annoyed with Millie Bobby Brown for the longest time because anytime he would type in Milwaukee Bucks, like he would try to look up Milwaukee Bucks, it would autocorrect to Millie Bobby Brown, and it just
Yep.
like pissed him off. That's the same energy
That's
that
the
you're
same-
giving
same
off here.
energy.
So basically, sports energy
Yeah.
ruins creates
Sports,
just like weird
yeah.
reasons to have opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I don't want people to think that we think he was the best actor in the movie. I think he did an amazing job, but like Zendaya also like phenomenal.
Killed her. Yeah.
And Lady Jessica,
Yeah,
Rebecca Ferguson, like
Yeah.
so good. Stilgar, like
Yeah.
Javier Bardem
Dude, where did that come from?
has written.
That's really
So good.
he's so humble. What was it?
Yeah,
He's so humble. Only somebody so humble
Yeah.
could be that. Yeah.
Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he did a really good job. Like he also was a lot of like the levity in the film,
Yeah.
but like really good job of showing like that fundamentalist fanaticism, but like how it's like believable.
A genuine.
Yeah, it's so genuine. Yeah.
He genuinely feels it and wants it, and like
he didn't
Yeah.
like, yes, there were times where he came across as like he's being manipulated, but he didn't come across as like this mindless drone that's been brainwashed into thinking this. Like this was something really personal to him.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was really well done.
I
Yeah.
think assuming that a next movie gets made, it'd be really interesting to see. And I have not read Dune Messiah, so I really don't know exactly where things are going, but it'd be cool if
Yeah.
Stilgar and Paul kind of had a falling out, and you could kind of see this like breakdown of that belief in his religious figure, basically.
Yeah. Oh, also, Aaliyah kills, speaking of Dune Messiah, Aaliyah kills Baron Harkonnen in the book, and that plays a big
Yeah,
role
yeah,
in
yeah.
Dune Messiah. Um,
Yeah, I remember that.
but yeah, um, yeah,
I do
I
think,
think, I mean, go ahead.
thinking back on it, it is, I don't know, maybe a little strange the way that Aaliyah was handled because the movie literally starts with Jessica talking to her, right? Or Paul, or no, Paul talking
Yeah,
to
Paul
his
talking to her.
unborn sister.
Yeah,
And throughout that's kind of a mainstay in a lot of the dialogue. It pops up every now and then, but in the end, like she really has no impact on what happens. So, I mean, not that it
I
was like a
think
bad
she
thing, but
does.
it is interesting that she doesn't like do anything too impactful on screen.
A lot, I mean, a lot of her importance is more in the sequels, but she does have an impact. Like her, it's her and Lady Jessica together. Like it's this awakened fetus that they call an abomination at the end of the film. Um, that it's that awakened fetus with Lady Jessica as a Reverend Mother that they together, that's how they're able to swing the Fremen in the movie into following Paul. Like that was my understanding of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
But
and
I think Steven's right. It doesn't have that. Yeah, I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I feel like it has as much impact, has more impact than you could expect of a fetus to have.
It's true.
Well, I just
Um,
mean in the book, she's born and does
yeah, yeah, she does more.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she definitely does more in the book. I will. So okay, so that change, how much of that change do you think was done to just not have to deal with a child actor like that has to act as if they are this like super wise, all knowing, and like
I don't know. I think they could have done it.
I think that was a big part of it. Like, how do you do that without it being cheesy? Because if you've seen the David Lynch Dune movie, it's pretty cheesy. Like,
Fair enough. I haven't seen
but a
it.
lot of the movie, that
Yeah.
movie is cheesy anyways. But
Yeah, I mean,
I think that
Mm.
was partly a calculated effort to like reduce the like
the cheese level.
the weirdness in a way that will like take people out of this more
So a
grounded
talking
approach.
fetus is better.
I think the talking fetus fits better because it's like this more ethereal, like
2001 Space Odyssey.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
you don't see the fetus's mouth moving. The only time you see it talking with a face like talking is a full grown adult, you know, with
Well,
Anya Taylor Joy.
but you see the beginning, like the intro shot is like that of a fetus.
It's not the fetus talking, the
I
fetus
know.
is just there.
Well, of course, yeah.
So that's what I mean.
Well, in Dune
That's
3, wouldn't they just have the same problem?
yeah, I mean, maybe unless well,
Unless
no,
they
because
do
there's a
have a
big
time
time
They'll get
jump.
the,
There's a
they're
They're
already
gonna-
they're already gonna have Anna Taylor Joy doing it.
yeah, there's a huge time jump in the book there too.
Okay.
She has to finish. She has to finish Furiosa, and then when she finishes that, she can jump over to Dune.
And didn't even Villeneuve says he wants to do another movie before Dune Messiah. So, but I think that's a big calculated effort part of it because that seems like more mystical and ethereal, and you can buy into it with the fantastical elements. But just seeing a child actor and you have to take them seriously as this like amazing thing comes across way better in a
Yeah.
book than you could. You could do it on screen, but it'd be really hard.
So
Yeah.
as weird as Dune is, that is too weird.
Bridge too far.
I mean,
personally,
they toned down a lot of
I'm
the
not,
weirdness.
I'm not quite fine. I mean, I think
it was a big part of
I
it.
think it's a part of it. I mean, but I don't know. Like,
So why else do it? Why else make the change? Do you think?
I don't know. But they just leaned into the other weirdness so much. Like they have things sucking. Like I don't know. They
Like
have
what?
just like the waters like sucking water out of the dead bodies.
I don't think that's.
Like feeding.
I don't think that's weird on the same
They
level.
have cannibalism. They have like
That's like, but those are more like horror elements. Like that's the cannibalism, more horror elements. The sucking water out of it. That's just like
they have a black and white moon. I'm just saying from like a big picture perspective, they have like a whole color grade, like black and white color graded shot.
Oh yeah,
Like
what was
I
your
don't-
guys' interpretation of that?
I
My
thought it was cool because the sun was supposed to be like a black sun, so
yeah,
like, it
but
was a cool effect.
my understanding of it, like saying it's a black sun, and I don't remember how it is in the book, and that like effect is I thought it was supposed to represent like the pollution of the planet, like
Oh.
how far that's gone. Like I thought it was more the sun looks black rather than it actually is black.
Oh.
But is it black in the book? I don't remember.
Uh,
But it looked so super
It
cool.
was cool. Yeah.
But again, that's like a more artsy ethereal
Yeah.
thing than like the suspension of disbelief could be broken so much more by
It's
having
like less uncanny valley.
yeah.
But
I really liked that whole shot. That's probably one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, it's done so well.
And honestly, I
Dude,
never really even thought like, why is this happening? I just thought this looks cool.
yeah.
But I like the planet is polluted interpretation. Funny, I tried to watch the Marvels. I'm like halfway through. I don't like hate it, but it's just, it is a movie.
same.
Anyway,
I have not. I've
there's
started.
a
I've watched
similar
it
plot point
three
there.
times and have not finished it yet.
There's a
So-
similar plot point.
Yeah, one of the planet is like polluted and therefore the villain needs to like go and yeah. But it doesn't look as cool.
Of course,
The few things do compared to Dune.
it has twice
Yeah,
the
come
budget, but
Dude, we need to do this would be a really good episode idea. Like following up on the Dune hype. We gotta watch the David Lynch version of Dune and compare. It's it's like 2 hours long, I think, depending on the edit of it.
okay.
Like we could
I'm down to watch it.
If this video gets more than 100 views, I'll do that.
Dude, it's worth
What's the
your time.
bar? 100?
100
Yeah,
views.
100 views.
I think it's definitely worth your time. There are like the whole like Dune aesthetic was like that was the first iteration of it,
I've seen so many like memes and clips and like
and it has some like really memeable parts. It's
Yeah.
kind of like the prequels from Star Wars. Like there's some like genuinely parts I think are good, but there's a
yeah.
lot
I
of-
watched the Corridor Crew break down like how they did the shield fight.
that's
That's so cool.
I don't understand how.
It looks so bad.
Yeah, I don't
It's
understand how
so
that
cool
made
how
it
they did
past,
it.
like any sort of like
It looks so
storyboard.
bad.
so
but-
bad.
How they did it is so cool.
Yeah, because it looks like it's 3D, but it's not.
Yeah, it's all hand drawn
Yeah.
frames.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyways,
I'm down to watch it. Let's
yeah, I think we should.
yeah. So we promised this at the beginning. Let's make this our last discussion of how does this compare to Lord of the
Oh,
Rings?
Lord of the
Two
Rings,
big, epic movie. Like hopefully this is a trilogy, maybe 4 movies, kind of still undetermined, right? And our friend Thomas walked out thinking, it's not quite as good as Lord of the Rings. I think they're two very different types of movies,
Super different.
right?
Yeah.
Like as different as they can be in the same science fiction fantasy genre.
I think so. Here's one answer.
Well,
And this
maybe
is
not
why-
quite. I mean, you still have like horror, which is in science fiction fantasy, but like, yeah, the
They're two opposite
presentation
ends.
of the two movies is very different.
So this is what I said when I walked out to like my family, and I think I might post on Fantology. But I think that my theatrical experience watching it, like the most maybe not impactful, but my biggest memories of watching theatrical releases were like the Harry Potter movies kind of as a whole, and like especially the last couple. And then
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings. I think I watched all of those in theaters. So Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, the new Star Wars, the first like the Force Awakens. I think that was I don't think the other two were as big for me, but the Force Awakens was really big. And
Force
then-
Awakens makes the list. Nice. Okay.
Well, no, there's so much hype. Come on, and it was.
Oh,
like,
are we just talking hype right now?
no, but also like I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was good, and I still stand by that. That movie in itself was like a pretty good movie. I'm not saying it's as good as Dune, but I think that there's a lot of hype, and I enjoyed watching it. And finally, Dune. So I think that Dune is in like at least my top 5 like theatrical experiences, and in that case, in that way, it totally competes with Lord of the Rings.
Would you say it's as good as Lord of the Rings? Worse than Lord of the Rings? Better than Lord of the Rings?
I think I enjoyed it less than I enjoyed Lord of the Rings, but
Okay.
I think
So
it's-
you're saying it's not as good as Lord
but
of
I
the
think they're both S tier.
Rings? Okay.
Like
but
I think they're both S tier.
Lord of the Rings is
for me,
first spot.
Lord of the
Dune
Rings
is
is-
second spot.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Steven?
feel like there's like you enjoy them in different ways. Like
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings looks really pretty and is bright and vibrant colors and
Yeah.
is like full of, these really on the nose thematic things, right?
Cartoonish.
Which are uh well, which is like the theme of the whole movie, right? Very, very positive, very much kind of this like Christian messaging, right, throughout. Um Dune is like, very feels grittier. I think the cinematography itself just like looks cooler, but I guess the themes are a little more disguised. And we just spent half an hour discussing the grayness of the characters and kind of the ambiguity of things, right? Not to say that like one set of themes is better or more worthy than the other. I just feel like the messaging around both movies is so different.
I
That
think
said,
a good
like,
way
are
to
you gonna
kind of,
force me? Are you gonna hold my feet to the fire and like force me to
yeah,
choose which
you have to
one
pick
I
one of
think
the
is
three
cooler?
options. You have to
I
say one
mean,
is better, one is worse, or they're the same.
I think I'm gonna say I personally enjoy Lord of the Rings more,
Mhm.
and I mean part of that is gonna be like the nostalgia of watching them
Nostalgia.
a
Yeah.
million times as a kid, and it's like growing up with
Yeah.
like that is
And
so foundational
yeah,
in a way
like
that
growing up,
Dune
like
just isn't, right?
one of my first memories is my dad like reading The Hobbit to me. Like that's one of my first memories. That's the core memory. So like
Yeah.
Dune doesn't have. I'm sure it has that for some people, but it
Who would
doesn't.
Josh be if
I
his
don't
dad
know.
had read Dune to him
Probably
instead
a
of The
lot
Hobbit?
weirder. I'm
Maybe he
pretty
would be
weird
you, Jake.
already.
Hopefully more. Hopefully, I feel like if I say this, it's a critique of you. That's what I'm going to say. I was just going to lean into like the be wary of charismatic leaders, but I feel like if I said that, it would make it seem like you're like, anyways. um, yeah, I think a good way to describe what you're saying is like a big difference is the message of the Lord of the Rings is having hope in the midst of misery and sorrow and pain and hardship. Like there is that light of hope. So it's more of like this hopeful message that's like forwarding. Whereas Dune, the message is a warning, and so it feels like
Yeah.
almost antithetical to hope, in that it's not like things can be good. It's like watch out, like be wary. And so like those are I don't know. That's just an interesting, and I think that if you look into like Tolkien, whether he liked Dune or not, that's a big part. Is I think he
Do you
saw
not like
Dune.
Dune?
No, he didn't. I he was like pretty like polite about it, but according to the biography I read, a big reason why he didn't like it is it had a pessimistic tone and view of humanity's future. Anyways, um, for me, I'd
I
say
mean,
they're
it sounds like it's kind of like the comp that we make a lot of times between Brandon Sanderson, who has that kind of
yeah,
like hope in the midst of bad things, right? Versus
yeah,
like Grimdark, which is just like, this
yeah,
sucks.
So
yeah.
yeah, so
So George R. R. Martin saying Gandalf should have died is completely missing the point of Tolkien's works. Like they're just two different genres at that
yeah,
point. But
yeah. So basically, Frank Herbert is Jaw Recovery, and
no, he's not grimdark. It's just anyways.
you're good. You're gonna
Um,
answer.
yeah, I think at this point I enjoy. Well, I will say I think they are just as good as each other. I think if I'm like thinking about it in terms of like art, like the artifice of it, like how well crafted it was, like hitting like achieving what the creators wanted to achieve there, and like the quality of production and acting and like quality of the product. I think they were on the same level. Lord of the Rings has way more mass appeal than Dune does, I think, in general in our culture. I also think for me personally, I love Dune, but Dune isn't a movie where I'm like any given movie night, like Dune isn't going to be a top option to pick. Like you have to be in the right, for me, I have to be in the right mindset and like mood to want to watch Dune. Whereas like Lord of the Rings, if like if people are like, movie should we watch? If Lord of the Rings is one of the options any night, I'm gonna heavily
I think we're
consider
gonna
it
watch Lord of the Rings tonight.
because it's like, and again, that might be personal preference, but I think that's also true to like our culture in general right now. Like
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is more accessible,
Yeah.
has more appeal, but I think in terms of quality, they're on the same level.
And we've just seen the movies so many times. We could sit down and watch 20, 30 minutes Lord of the Rings, and
Yeah,
it's gonna feel great, right?
I think
like I literally one time, like throughout the course of a week, I would just listen slash watch the extended editions of Lord of the Rings throughout my day, like doing chores. I'd be listening to it. If I was like sitting down, I'd watch it. You know what I mean? So like just like bite-sized chunks, and like I could do that 24/7.
there is a time for like 6 months in high school where I would wake up and like as I was getting ready, I would have the extended
They're
version of
just playing.
Lord of the Rings playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was like every day before school, like while
Yeah.
I was getting ready and like just trying to get the day going. I would like put in the
Yeah.
DVD and hit play, or just like hit play from where I left off yesterday, and like multiple times.
And I think people who would
Yeah.
I'm preemptively arguing, pushing back on those who'd say no, Dune is clearly better because it has more nuance, it's like more applicable, like themes or whatever. I think people miss out on the nuance that actually is in the Lord of the Rings. There are great characters in it. I think they're more fleshed out in the book, but there still are greater characters, and like it has really human elements and like lots of good character growth. I was talking
It has tragic moments.
tragic moments.
Yeah.
I think Eowyn's arc is done so well.
Yeah,
like,
Boromir.
Yeah.
Faramir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
And like a lot of people just dismiss it as like it's just good versus evil when it's really not. Like it is, it's
evil and how it can corrupt things that are trying to be good
really
like,
people's internal battle of trying to be good in spite
in
of
spite of
yeah.
evil's corruption.
Yeah, exactly. Which is much more compelling than like the way it can be simplified.
That Sam carrying Frodo up and out because he's just so
Which
cute.
that is such a great human moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Love
Sam
Lord of the
standing
Rings.
aside his jealousy and his insecurities and just like,
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys are just fanboying over there.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Huge.
But hopefully, I don't know. I can see Dune becoming that for a lot of people.
I don't think it'll ever achieve the same like mass.
Yeah,
Mass appeal is not, is that a phrase? Am I even saying that?
I think so.
Like it has, yeah.
Same, like cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah. I don't think it's as impactful in terms of like
Mhm.
people that know it and know the characters and the stories, which that might change after this. And but
Maybe,
it
yeah.
still seems like it's more heady. So
Yeah.
that's already going to be more of a barrier to entry for people.
Yeah, and it's just more adult.
Yeah, more adult. Yeah.
You know, like I think my high school self would have liked Dune but I don't think I would have loved Dune. You know what I mean? Like I would have understood. Yeah. I think I would have understood why it was like that was a good movie, but I don't think I would have been as enthralled by it as I was with like Lord of the Rings.
And to like relate back to your dad like reading you The Hobbit, like Lord of the Rings was a big part of my childhood. Like my mom like grew up like that was like her favorite book, and like we'd all pretty much every one of us did a book report on The Hobbit at some point in our lives. But also the David Lynch Dune was a big part of my childhood too, as this like sci-fi movie my dad loved, and like we all recognize it's really weird and terribly bad in some spots, but has really cool ideas and like really good moments to it as well. So that's coloring my view of it as well.
All right, well, if this video gets 100 views, Josh will watch the David Lynch version. We will all rewatch. I've never seen it either. We will all watch and do a movie review comparing the two.
I think it'd be really good because there's parts of the book that the Lynch movie portrays that the recent ones had to cut. So cool.
All right. Well, yeah, let us know what we missed as far as our book interpretations. I think we did our best, but it has been a little bit since
How
reading
did we
it.
get that timing so well? I guess we did it near when the first movie came out.
We did it near when the first movie was announced to come out,
Yeah.
but then it was delayed like a year and a half.
That's true. Okay. Like we're so bad at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well. Anyway, if you want to check out more from Pentology, you can follow the links in the episode description, hop on our Discord, and chat about anything that we mentioned. We covered, a few different references to different books and series, which we love, and would love to have you on to chat with us more.
Peace.
See you guys later. Bye.